So apparently everyone's saying not to post your worst books or your DNFs. So what am I gonna do? I'm gonna do the opposite. These are the top 5 worst books of 2025. The first book of 2025, Wind and Truth by Brandon Sanderson. This was January last year. Finally finished it in January when it came out in December. Um, I read half of it in 2024, the December of 2024, and then finally got the audiobook to finish it in January because it took so long to get through, and I just wanted to get to the parts that I could be spoiled about in videos and be able to watch those videos. Like, that was the full purpose, is to find out exactly the plot points that I needed to know. I don't know if I'm gonna care to read the next arc. I read Isles of the Emberdark recently. I don't know anymore. I just don't know. At this point, I think I'm only a partial fan. I like some things, other things don't hit. Not into reading 1,000-page books that don't need to be 1,000 pages. If you're gonna write a almost 2,000-page book and it goes nowhere in some sections or is repetitive, it becomes what's the point of using my time to do this? Which is why audiobook worked for me, because I could, like, parts I just seemed like fluff, I could tune out, which is unfortunate, because if you're a writer and you're writing things, you would want the person to care about the words they're consuming. And then Cursed Bread, which was more recently, it was part of my library challenge pick. It was also one of those that I should have DNF'd. Where I thought it was gonna go a certain way and it didn't. So Cursed Bread is character focused, but also it's based on a historical event where all these people get poisoned. The town just basically gets poisoned, and then there's they all go crazy. And it's still like an unsolved thing. And I thought this was gonna touch more on that, but it was more like character focused and didn't really get to the mystery part until the end. So then it's another one of those things of why am I reading these words? Why am I using the time to read these words if I'm not really like caring about these words? And then the Paris Express, I once again, like, the historical event was almost backstage to the character focus of this historical fiction. I spoiled myself by looking up the actual historical event. So don't do that if you plan on trying this one. And the characters were hard to differentiate, which, as an epic fantasy reader, it shouldn't be that hard to tell the difference between a bunch of characters, but this one was. And I don't know if that's because some weren't written differently enough. Because there were a couple that I matched their name to who they were, but otherwise, if it was a random name of a person, I was like, who is this person again? What are they doing? oh yeah, this is the conductor of the train. It was that kind of feeling where I had to remember while also consuming the story and trying to understand. But very character focused, not so much historical focused. All the characters are fictional, but also real people from that time in history. She explains it like I liked her author's note at the end more than I liked reading the book, because the author's note went more into the historical aspects of her book. So, yeah. The Angel Experiment was one of my online book club reads. It was someone's previous favorite book from when they were a teenager, which I can understand because it was very YA, in the sense that it was written very angsty, and that 2000s lingo and slang, and just if you want to go back to the 2000s, read this book. But it was, it just wasn't written the best either, which this is the first book that I've read by this author, and I don't like, maybe if it was unfortunate that this had to be it, because I don't think I got uh a good sampling of his writing from this series. And then Witchcraft for Wayward Girls by Grady Hendrix. I actually liked How to Sell a Haunted House and the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. I like that one too. This one I did not like, and I think a lot of other people didn't either, because it was less focused on the witchcraft part and more on the wayward girls part. I enjoyed the St. Augustine setting. It just wasn't, it didn't feel like any of his other books. It didn't really feel scary. I still remember a scene from the Slaying Vampires one with a bug, and like I don't have any specific scene in this one that has that same memory like sticking for me. And I'm gonna mention books I DNF'd in 2025 that would have been, I DNF'd them because they would have been low star ratings anyway. So my DNFs were Dead Money. It just, I just remember not caring about the main character, because it's about some like rich high society technological company, and I think I read it like 2 chapters and I just didn't care enough, so I let the next person have the ebook. And the next one is Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez, and I picked this one up because it was a member fave on Book of the Month, and to get your free book award from the previous year, like your free book, you have to order a box. So I did the member fave option and got this because, you know, maybe I should try romance again. And this Abby Jimenez, like everyone talks about her. Even like the Christian girlies talk about reading her books. And I'm like, okay, well, she has to have clean or cleaner romance. No, this one is about a one night stand, and they consistently talk about doing it, and I got maybe 50 pages in, I was like, no. So, and then with that same book of the month box, you get to pick their top 4 or 5 award books for the previous year. So I picked The Wedding People out of all the ones you could pick, because that seemed the one I would have most enjoyed. But I didn't like the main character, I didn't like, and I don't know specifically what turned me off from this book, because I read it so long ago now. But it just was not for me. So then that complete book of the month box was like a miss. Mercy, I'm in here. My cat is crying for me. And then this is another library ebook. I picked up Victorian Psycho because it was a. Why are you meowing like crazy? Mercy, come help me. Come on. Here you go. You go help. Okay. Victorian Psycho. This one was a little too, like, you're obviously in the mind of a psychopath, and it just was too dark, too much, too many dark themes for me within the first chapter. I think I read like 3 chapters of that before I let the next person take it. But yeah, it was just a little too dark for me. Then Cold Wire by Chloe Gong was an e-arc, because I usually like Chloe Gong's stuff. It was mediocre until I got to a very specific point in, I think it was maybe 6 chapters in, I don't even remember, when they had to insert a non-binary side character. Specifically was stated that they weren't sure what their gender was, so they go by they because they weren't sure which they felt like they were. So that was a little like out of place, especially first meeting this side character. I told the publisher, nope, sorry, not gonna review this. And if that means I don't get more of Chloe Gong's e-arcs, I don't care at this point, because when you're inserting something so obviously an insert, I'll wait until publishing doesn't do that to you. Then another one that was too dark for me that I DNF'd, and it was in September, so it was not a time that I really wanted to be reading super gory stuff, and that was Brahms' Evil in Me, especially like the very first scene is very, very gory and unsettling and just dark. So that one, that's not even a try later, I don't think. I think I've lost my taste for a lot of dark stuff. That also didn't work for me. Then I DNF'd the rest of the Jade Saga with Jade. I don't even remember the series name, but I read Jade City and started Jade War, and it felt too different, and inclusion stuff added on to, there was too much spice for me that I didn't have interest in the rest of the series, so that was like the rest of the series DNF. And then I have, so on Goodreads, if you go to my Goodreads, I have so many shelves. I use that for so much organization. I have a DNF shelf, and I also have a try later shelf. So the try laters are my soft DNF of that I'll come back to because I didn't think I was in the right mood or mindset, or just wasn't the right time to be reading it. And so I tried Camp Lanier. It's another YA, and I started reading it right after I had read The Angel Experiment, and it is also in a similar tone. It's very young adult, and it brought up TikTok and Instagram, I think, and I was like, oh man, this sounds like the modern version of what I just read. And this one was more of teenagers in the now, and I was like, I can't read this again. I'm gonna eventually pick it up again when I feel like I am ready for that type of writing again. But I wasn't ready right after my Angel Experiment reading. So that's my worst books of 2025 plus some DNFs. So I'm going to end the video, and in the comments let me know what your top 5 worst books were. And as always, if you hit that subscribe button, I can see everyone in the next video.
But if I lay down and I play dead and I stay